Video number 4. Welcome to the dark side. Buckets. I've already done a video on buckets and yeah, it was alright. Okay. But I'm going to tell you it again because this particular kit, you can do buckets in closed position, which is folded away, or you can do buckets in open position, which is what you can see there. Buckets in closed position look all right. Buckets in open position look even better. With buckets, let's start with stage 29. Okay. Now, this is one of those videos that you might need to watch over and over and over again. Not complicated, but there's a certain path that you've got to follow. Now, the instructions, stage 29, obviously, as following the instructions kind of builder, when you get to stage 29, you just do it. And that's where your problems start. Don't do it, all right? Leave it off. And we'll go back to that later. So, it's part B66, and it's the sort of cowling, the aluminium cowling that goes between the fuselage and the exhaust. It's that part. Looks like a pair of devil's horns with a figure of 8 kind of aluminium hoop, if you will. Leave it off. So let's just pop back to buckets then. So a couple of ways that you can do it. So some pictures, right. What you can do is you can attach 2 struts to one bucket. Pop your picture up. So that is 2 struts to one bucket. Or you can do 1 strut to 2 buckets. Next picture. Okay. You might need to rewind that. So 2 struts to 1 bucket or 1 strut to 2 buckets. Then what you can do is you can attach the other set of arms to the other side. Now, that prompts a question. Which way is easiest? Well, I've done them both. And I've done them both to find out which is easiest. And they're both as difficult as each other. When I said difficult, you don't need 3 hands. What you need is some really good glue, a good set of tweezers, and a bucket load of patience, because there's a male arm and a female hole. The female hole on the bucket is 0.0001 of a millimetre in diameter. And same for the pin on the male strut. It's not difficult, it's just that the strut and the hole are absolutely minute. And even the smallest dab of super glue will flood that hole so much that you can't even see it anymore. So it's like blind leading blind. It's one of them kind of builds. And again, it's a Revel Stage 5. However, a little bit of patience, a little bit of time, you'll be fine. It's that simple. It's either doing it one way or other. Once you've built them, they do look great. Okay, so straightforward. Don't shy away from it. Don't get to that part and think, oh, sod that, I'm going buckets in. Because everybody goes buckets in. There's not many tornado builders that go buckets out. I think there's only this Revel kit, IDS and the ADV, that actually lets you do buckets deployed. So it's a feature. So if it's a feature, push yourself and have a go. What's the worst that can happen? All right. Like I said, once they're painted, they look great. Now, it's all right that you've built your buckets. That's stage 1. But this is what I want you to do when I want you to assemble all that. Because you've got exhausts, and part B66, that part that I told you not to fit on. So what you need to do is you need to build and paint stage 30, 31 and 32. Okay, build them and then stop. Now what you can do next is you can paint part B66. That's that part that we talked about earlier. So if you prime it and then paint the two sort of like pointy, coney shapey things in the colour that you're going to do your main bird, and then you can paint that aluminium band top and bottom, get that out of the way, get that done. All right. You can paint your exhausts inside and out, the colour of your choice. I usually go for a primer XF or X1, whether it's gloss or matte, it don't particularly matter at this stage. And then on this particular bird, I've gone for, let me have a think, I've just gone for a dark iron. All right. So what you've got then is you should have, I'm just trying to remember if I've got a photo. You should have a pair of buckets with the arms painted. Buckets, I think I did in X1 black primer, inside and out. Then I swapped, that's Tamiya. Then I swapped to a Vallejo gunmetal in the airbrush and shot that inside and out. Then with a small stippling brush, which is basically one of my knackered old brushes, I stippled on. Now this is only on outside. I left the insides just the gunmetal. So on the outside, I stippled on some Citadel Rune Lord, which is like a brass colour. Stipple it on so it's like a stabbing motion. Give that 5 or 10 seconds, and then with a soft brush, you can start just to blend that in. Then I think I went with some clear blue, a tiny speck of clear blue. And then just again, I went with some, this is all stippling, by the way, stippling then blending, stippling then blending. And then I went with gunmetal again, but a lighter coat, a Citadel brass again, a lighter coat, and just kept stippling it and blending it, stippling it and blending it. Then I worked in some stippled flory dark dirt wash, stippled that in, blended it again, looked at it, thought needs a little bit more gunmetal, I might just put one stipple of Vallejo aluminium in there, stippled one brush in, blended it in, one stipple of gunmetal, blended it in, and you're blending it in, blending it in, blending it in. Okay. Once you've done your buckets and you've got your exhausts and you've got parts B66, so you've got 3 parts there. So what you need to do is attach your buckets to the exhausts, and they just slide down onto those locating bars. Once you've done that, what you can do is you can get your painted part B66 and slide it up the exhaust over the edges of the buckets, you'll see, over the arms, and that is done. What you will find then is, because normally what you're trying to do is, if you attach that part B66 onto the fuselage, when you try and put your exhausts in, you're trying to force them in and you can hear things cracking and snapping and all sorts of shit. The reason that they're making all that noise is because they're trying to fit inside that cowling that you've put onto the fuselage. However, if you put that cowling up the exhaust, it don't happen. Okay, trust me. Once you can put all that to one side then, so basically the part that you should have in your hand is the twin exhaust system with the cowling shoved halfway up from the inside and your buckets glued on from the backside, and that is one part, and you can put that to one side, because that, now you've done it like that, once your bird is finished, and I mean complete, that little system there that you've just built literally slides in. It is that simple. Okay, so I'm talking about all this here. All right, okay. That simple. For your exhaust area, you need some good cleanup, and then some. All the mating surfaces have to be absolutely spot on. Otherwise, they won't marry. And if they don't marry, then all that back end won't fit. Have a really good cleanup, because there's gate plastic, ejector pin marks, burrs, all sorts of stuff. You really need to make sure that they're very clean. Glue them on one side, because it's a fiddly little part. It's like it almost don't want to go together. Glue them one side, give it 5 or 10 minutes, let it dry, and then go out other side, glue it from the outside and from the inside. Okay, and you should be absolutely fine with that. That is that back end, and it needs to be absolutely spot on before you can move on. Going to cover air intakes. Okay, so unorthodox build, air intakes, a couple of points. GCU, general cleanup on every single surface, because this is one of those areas that is full of ejector pin marks. Once you've cut the parts from the sprue, build them. Don't follow the instructions on this particular part. Look at the photos that I'm putting up. So remove them, clean them, build them. Glue them, right? Step 10, part C18. All right, so if you've got your instructions, or when you come to build it, and just have a look, video number 4, air intakes, it'll all be in summary. You can glue those onto part C18 very simply, and you know, somebody has to go first. So, well, whereabouts do you glue them? You'll find it. There's two recesses where they're going. Okay. And once you've glued them on, let that dry, and then you can prime and paint them in white. Step 22 on your guide tells you, I think, to use part number 2, P249. But there's an alternative, which is L56. I was going to use P249, except it was twisted and warped, so I had to go for L56. The reason that there's 2 spines is because if you look at him from the inside, halfway down you'll see that one's got 2 holes, that's for twin aerial version, and one's got 1 hole, which is for the 1 aerial version. I think one's a GR4 and one's a GR1. Okay. Check for ejector pin marks. Have a really good general cleanup and glue that on, but only glue it across the top. All right. Once that's glued on and squared away, turn it upside down. Just put a little bit of masking tape in them recesses, because that's where the intakes glue to. All right. And we all know that glue and paint just don't work. Dry fit it. Check it 10 times over, right? Don't just take it for granted that everything's like, oh, I've done it, because you're just inviting trouble. Okay. Prime it, paint it white. As far as intakes are concerned, general build, job done. Okay. Job done. It's that simple. I know it's unorthodox, but if you do it that way, you'll be absolutely fine. I think we'll leave it there for today, and catch you on the next one. Cheers.